When I was 6 years old, a neighbor of mine took me to church with him so that I could attend Sunday school. I was unable to comprehend what the instructor was saying, since not only did she speak with a thick accent, but I also had not yet learned how to read. My interest was piqued, though, by the vibrantly colored educational material. In class, I recalled how, as I turned around and saw an image of Jesus, I was struck with a sense of awe at his authoritative presence. Instantaneously, the revelation that he is my God became a part of my most closely guarded secret. Even though I knew he would never abandon me, I frequently failed to even think about him. When I was 16 years old, I went through the process of becoming baptized, and it was then that I came to the realization that there is nothing on earth that can compare to God. 1973 was the year when I had my NDE. While I was having a shower in the bathroom, I was exposed to a toxic level of carbon monoxide, which caused me to lose consciousness. The explanation was that there was insufficient oxygen in the tank that the gas cylinder was stored in. Because of the gas that was leaking into the shower area, there was only a partial combustion. I was technically dead for about 10 minutes there. Almost immediately after my physical body stopped functioning, I became aware that I was in a pitch-black room and that I had no body. I also had the sensation that I had lost the capacity to grip onto things. I was no more than a particle. I could go very slowly, or I could speed up to the point where I could fly really quickly. In the pitch black, I was able to slide over the trees, glide through the mountains, and go across the surface of the world. I got lower and lower till I was almost on the ground. With my improved eyesight, I had the distinct impression that I did not require corrective lenses anymore. Without any difficulty, I was able to discriminate between the trees and the soil. My consciousness is in tune with the deeds that take place in the spiritual realm. I continued to float around while I was up in the air for a bit until I became tired of it. The flying became a highly taxing and exhausting experience. As I attempted to take a seat, I suddenly became aware that I lacked both arms and legs, as well as my entire torso. As a result, I was unable to even feel the earth beneath my feet. I found myself wondering, where am I? I was struck by a profound realization that came into my head out of nowhere and said, I have a God. Jesus suddenly appeared in the light and hurriedly made his way over to where I was standing. I was immediately aware of the fact that he had arms and legs, in contrast to my lack of a body. I couldn't help but gaze at him, and as I did, I noticed that his face was completely expressionless, devoid of even a grin. He stood at a height of nearly 7 feet. He concealed his hands within the length of his robe's long sleeves and donned a long, white robe that reached down to his feet. His hair was coarse, dark, and only reached an inch or so below his ears in length. He sported a trendy cut for his hair at the time. He had bushy eyebrows that were cut short and fashioned like a line. On top of that, his face was very lengthy. Overall, he appeared like a contemporary guy. During the time that I was staring at him, the idea crossed my mind, why doesn't he talk to me or smile at me? He motioned for me to forward by waving his left hand and inviting me to do so. He was able to read my mind just as I was about to approach him. The glow that had been around him suddenly faded out as he abruptly turned around. Almost immediately, I saw a well-lit window, which I took to be a representation of the soul's window. My thoughts suddenly exploded with the profound realization that this is my home. The moment I contemplated returning to my body, I found myself right back where I had left off. My near-death experience was so real that I can still recall every single aspect of it, even how it felt to be back on earth. It was like entering a thick object. Praise be to the Lord Jesus, for it was he who had delivered me. Here is the second near-death experience account. I was admitted to the hospital because I was suffering from an ectopic pregnancy. Internal bleeding was occurring, and there were indications that I had blood poisoning. After receiving an injection to help me relax prior to surgery, I requested a pastor to accompany me to the operating room. Nevertheless, my request was denied. But that was okay, since I had already decided that if I were to die, I would accept it and move on with my life. I put my life in the Lord's hands and said, "Into your hands I place my life." While I was under anesthesia, the nurses instructed me to count backwards from 10 to 1. When I got to the count of 5, I decided to start praying the Our Father instead of continuing to count. I was lured into a dark tunnel that was slightly oily, and as a result, I was unable to complete reading it. In the tunnel, it was completely dark, and for a time, I had the sensation that I was floating. As I made my way into the tunnel, I became aware that the discomfort in my stomach was gradually disappearing. At the end of the tunnel, there was a really brilliant light that I observed. I had a good feeling, and the idea of dying didn't disturb me as much as it used to. As I got closer to the light at the end of the tunnel, I had the sensation that I was being drawn towards it quicker. There were the faces of individuals who had passed away, some of whom I recognized and some of whom I did not, and they were yelling, "No, go back, go back, go back." After that, I heard noises like people muttering. At the conclusion of the passage, I discovered that I was in the midst of all those other folks. I felt good. I was free from all discomfort, had no concerns left, and was bathed in warmth. Additionally present was my grandfather. Even though we were relieved to see each other, there were some unsettling rumors going about. The overwhelming majority of people responded with a no. A disturbing vibration could be felt throughout the environment. A person clad in a white robe had gradually materialized out of the brilliant light that had been around all along. As the person moved closer toward me, everyone around me fell quiet. The creature had a really cheery, relaxed, and smiling expression on its face. Even the warmth it emanated was palpable. The figure was neither particularly tall nor very heavy, and its height and weight were about typical for someone who was neither male nor female. I inquired, "Are you Jesus, or are you God?" I was greeted with a cheery message that said, "Evelyn, not yet, go back, go back." I had expressed my desire to continue living with my dad. I was given the message, Evelyn, not yet, you need to go back, while the speaker shook their head. The others in the area exclaimed, "Ah, oh," and grinned in response to what was spoken. I was adamant that we should remain. "Evelyn, you have no choice but to return," the apparition insisted, their grin never leaving their face. I had the sensation that I was being pulled back into the passageway, and the pain started to come back. Someone grabbed both of my hands, and suddenly I found myself outside of the tunnel. I was brought back to the surgery room and made acutely aware of the agony. I felt like I trying to get up to go. I became aware of the nurses pushing and pumping on my chest. My self-perception was that I was the body on the table. Despite the fact that I was still outside of my body, I attempted to pull the nurses away from me while simultaneously pleading with them to stop because the pain was excruciating. However, it appeared like they were oblivious of anything that I was doing. Then one of them said, "She's breathing. She's back." And when I came to find that I was lying on the table, I could feel and hear my own breath.